Today on our show, learn how to insure your ancient sarcophagus, complete with mummy. And also, we're going to be talking about Polybius with an awesome special guest. That's next for you guys on Nerdynomicon. Welcome to the Nerdynomicon, and we've got a special treat for you guys as a little bit of a thank you for making March our biggest month yet. We've got 2 shows this week. This is our first one, and we've got an awesome guest for you. We've got Ben Grisanti from Hypnotic Dogs.
Hello.
Did I say your name correctly, by the way?
You said my name correctly, but I usually just go with Hypnotic Dog.
Oh, the Hypnotic Dog.
It's a singular dog.
Oh.
So one hypnotic dog.
So it's not a plurality or anything
it's
like that?
It's not a plurality, although maybe it will be someday. I really know where it's going.
So you and I met a few months ago at Buffalo Comic-Con.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And you immediately responded to the book that I had out, which was my comic, Insurance. And the premise of that is that it's an insurance office for magical and haunted artifacts, which is our way of spoofing supernatural detective stories and kind of turning it into like an office space kind of thing.
It was absolutely awesome. You actually sold me on it by describing it as, I think the analogy you used was The Magicians mixed with The Office.
Yeah, it's something like that. And then you immediately responded with, oh, it's like Friday the 13th, the series. I'm like, yeah, that's it. But like, not a lot of people know that.
Your eyes like lit up when I said that.
Yes, nobody knows that. Unless you're a horror fan. Horror fans know that, but it's not part of my pitch because they would have no idea what I'm looking at.
Well, to be honest,
what I'm talking about.
That series is also pretty damn deep cuts too. Like even Mike, the artist of the book, Mike Alvarez, looked up and he's like, "What? Like seriously?" I'm like, "Yeah, I love that show." And then he and I proceeded to bond over Linnea Quigley.
Yes, like you do. She was a guest.
Exactly. So that happens. So Insurance was basically how you and I met, and I picked up all 4 books that you had out at that point. You've recently, did you wrap up a story arc, or did you wrap up the entire series with the 5th book? For now, it's the whole series, but it's what you might call a backdoor pilot, because there's room for a sequel. Okay.
And there's plenty of more stories like on the docket. It's just that we both, Mike and I, have other things that we kind of want to get to. So I don't really know how it's going to proceed at this point, but it is a cohesive, full narrative right now in 5 installments that we're going to eventually collect. But I'm going to be sure to get you a copy of the 5th one. I'm sold out of it right now, so I got to get some more.
Hey, dude, that is a good problem to have, though.
Yeah,
it's an excellent problem to have, frankly.
Yeah. I also don't print very many, but we did run a Kickstarter to get the 5th issue out there and to try to like, we knew it was coming out anyway, but we wanted to recoup some money and just try to sort of expand our footprint a little bit and get it in the hands of some new people.
Which makes perfect sense.
Yep. And so we got that out. I printed them up for that. I sold a few more elsewhere, and I've got like, I think 1 left, but I owe that to somebody already. So it's going to be time to get a new print run of that.
Yeah, I remember seeing that you were running your Kickstarter on it. I don't remember if you had variant covers, though. For whatever reason, I'm a 31-year-old man boy. I still love me some variant covers.
I do for the current one that I have, which we're going to talk about in a minute, but not for Insurance. No, it's just the one, and it's actually really happy with like the final cover that we got because it's going to be good for the collected edition too. That was kind of the plan. It was like the last one is going to be the one that we use for the collected edition because this is Insurance is like the comic book series where I learned how to make comics.
Okay.
And you can tell, like when you go back and you look through it, like you can see, like as that story progresses, Mike and I get better at our respective jobs, like in getting the things done. So, I mean, the first issue is a little bit rough, but it's also it's like a standalone installment because we didn't know if we would get to do another one.
Right. Anybody in any sort of production medium or entertainment medium always has that. You know what I mean? I look back on some of the podcasts that I started out with. Rough.
Yeah.
Oh, God, rough.
Yeah.
I mean, hell, I'm even reading through the first compendium of The Walking Dead right now. Robert Kirkman, as much as I love him, rough at first.
It was difficult going for that book for a little while. That was the little book that could. Like, nobody wanted it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that book came out, it was like Image. I mean, they did it with Image, and it was a surprise hit. Like, nobody thought that was going to turn into the cultural phenomenon that it eventually turned into.
Exactly, where people are dressing up as Fat Negan for Halloween. You know, you got 300-pounders sliding themselves up, using Crisco to get into that leather jacket and finding some sort of red scarf someplace. But, I mean, everybody has that when you're working on something like this. You know, you just have to find your stride, get your rhythm, and boom, there you go.
The only way you're going to learn how to do it is if you just do it.
Exactly.
You can't really learn how to do it. There's no way. Like, with comics, you could take illustration courses. I think there are courses these days, but you just got to try it. You just got to get in there and figure it out.
Learn by doing.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I'm still pretty proud of, like, the first thing I ever did, which wasn't even insurance, was
The Man in the Cafe? Or The Man in the Diner?
Man in the Diner? No. That long before any of that was a book I did called Plenty of Time, which I'm going to totally spoil right now.
Okay.
But it was designed to be like a one of those ironic Twilight Zone style sci-fi stories with that twist at the end that, you love them. You know, those twist stories.
Oh, how can you not?
So, and I just found like a random artist I'm still really good friends with named Becca Kinsey out of Kitchener, Ontario, and she liked the story that I gave her. We ended up working on it long distance. I was in Chicago. She was drawing it from Ontario. I eventually came back to Buffalo. What we did is we just printed out her pencils and inked over the printouts. And,
oh my God, man.
And then rescanned it. And then I had to figure out how to fit my story onto these. This is actually a really good exercise if you want to, like, figure out how to write a comic book. Then I had to figure out how to fit all my story onto those pages. So we then cut them all up and sort of and rearranged it in a way that we could actually tell the story comfortably. And it came out actually pretty good. I still sell it. Like, I still have it available. I only sell it for like $2. You know, it's an interesting artifact, but I think it holds up. But the idea is that these, it starts with like two space people, two astronauts in big, clunky-looking, old-school spacesuits. They arrive back on Earth after being in space for a long period of time, and it looks like the planet has been completely depopulated. There's like nobody left on the planet anymore. And they think they don't know why there's nobody here, but they assume it was some catastrophic event, and now it's like kind of overgrown, like kind of a Planet of the Apes scenario where they've just been away for so long, and since time moves differently, it's like they've been gone a relatively short period of time, but like maybe hundreds of years have passed on Earth. So they're like, we'll figure out what this is in the morning. Okay. So they wake up the next day and they're being overtaken by this like flesh-eating bacteria, and it's just eating away at their flesh, and they just start rotting, and they have no idea why. And then they see that there's some people there. There's other people on the planet, so they know it's not like if it's a communicable disease, it's like these people aren't getting it or whatever. So story moves on. They eventually find out that it's actually what's eating them are tiny, like microscopic robots, like nanobots, that were deployed on the planet to eat up all the pollution, and their bodies are actually synthetic, and they didn't know it. So they're actually in robot bodies in order to survive in space, and they end up falling apart, like in each other's arms because they're lovers. It's like,
no shit. You maybe just spoiled the whole story for me, but I want my hands on that.
Yeah, it's a fun one, you know.
Now, when you said like cut it up, I mean, are we talking like how a serial killer cuts things up and then sends the letter over to the cops and stuff like that?
Exactly like the ransom note. Exactly, nice. Like the ransom note. So it's like, yeah, we had these printouts, and I mean, we were like digitally cutting them up, really, but we took all like the printed out stuff, we inked over that, and rescanned it in there, and just figured out like on the computer like how to change it in a way so that we turned up basically 13 pages of drawn comics into 24 pages with text. And we mostly cut the panels up just to fit on the page so that we could have like the whole thing is told just in narration. So we didn't have to worry about speech bubbles or anything like that.
Oh my God, that's such a phenomenal idea.
Yeah, it's a fun thing to do. Like if I'm ever teaching a class and doing comics, I'll probably suggest that. But that could be a ways away. But it's a great exercise for sure.
Well, honestly, I mean, we started out. I wanted to talk about insurance with you. I wanted to touch on your other books and everything, and then obviously get to your new book, which you've got out here. But I did not expect a crash course in comic creation here. This is excellent.
I just can't help it. It's got to do it. It's like insurance started as something I was writing as a short story. And actually, going back even farther than that, we were going to do it as a tabletop RPG. We were like this idea where it's like,
fuck, that's a good idea.
We're going to have this character who's like, he's like a psychic, and he's like, he was based on John Constantine. He was based on Hellblazer. Just like chain smoking, bad attitude, trench coat wearing.
Now, it's funny you say that because while reading Insurance, and by the way, I'm giving my review for this book here because it's Nerdynomicon. I got to give you guys a review. Insurance, fucking great. Not only is it compelling, it's also hysterical. And for whatever reason, you mentioned John Constantine. In my head, the main character, Earl, was voiced by Nick Offerman.
From
Arts and Recreation.
Yeah, that totally makes sense.
That is who I had in my head. And if this ever became like a series on Hulu or Netflix, which it totally could, like the story is that good, Nick Offerman. Holy shit, that would be great.
I can see it as maybe like somebody else in the office, maybe, but I bet he could pull it off. Yeah, for sure.
Oh God, yeah.
Like that deadpan. Like Earl's all about his like being deadpan and being like totally unmoved by anything that he sees. Like, Mummy,
Earl fucking Gratz. Right?
I've seen it. Yeah, Earl Gratz. Yeah, claims adjuster. We've got the Batman moment in like the first issue where he's like standing on the side of the street and you see in the narration he goes, I was a claims adjuster, and then the car passes and he disappears. He's not there anymore. It was really all about that. Like when we came out, that was one of those jokes where it was like everything came together after it. It was like
the Jason Bourne of it all.
Yeah, exactly. Like he just disappears into the night. Insurance claims adjuster. Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about your other book that I mentioned,
Man in the Diner.
The Man in the Diner.
Yeah,
that was surreal. I read that one after Insurance, and I was expecting, I really got a good sense of your humor, your wit, and everything, kind of your wink to throwback horror and everything like that, having that whole office spiel in there, a fucking Quetzalcoatl on the cover of one of the issues. It was great. And then I picked up The Man in the Diner, and it was a completely different feel, a completely different book. It felt very eldritch, very Lovecraftian to a degree. First off, that came before Insurance, right?
Well, the story did, for sure. The story for Man in the Diner came around as a short story that I wrote a long time ago, maybe a decade ago. And I just kind of sat on it, and I always thought like it was a pretty cool idea. Like it's got it's got that ending, which that one I'm not going to spoil, but it's got that ending, and it just felt like a really good setup of this guy, this unreliable narrator story of this kid that just gets totally overwhelmed and out of his element by talking to strangers because we've all met that stranger that just gets it a little too weird. You're talking to him for a little bit and you think he's like normal, and then he says something or does something and you're like, oh, this is a crazy person. Right?
Oh, that guy always finds me Tim Hortons.
Yeah, I know. They're pretty easy to find. They tend to find me too.
Oh, I don't find them. They find me.
They find you, yeah. Right. So it was just like a really good setup. But I didn't actually turn that into a comic book until many years later. And I found Rob to draw it. He's my tattoo artist. Mm-hmm. He tattoos at Dead Man's Hand on Forest Avenue in Buffalo. We have Buffalo listeners. They should check it out. But he did all the covers for Insurance, and we were talking about maybe doing like a longer book. Like he was more interested in it. And I said, hey, why don't we do this one? And originally, that book kind of oscillates between reality and hallucination, very deliberately.
Yeah.
Like the scenes that are in the diner are considered reality, and there are scenes where he's traveling and his brain is kind of scrambled, and those are the hallucination sequences. And originally, I was going to draw the reality sequences and let Rob do the hallucination sequences. But I get so frustrated drawing, so I was eventually just like, dude, how about you just do the whole thing? And he was pretty cool with that idea, but he still kind of stuck to that, where it's like the scenes that you see in the diner are really kind of like line work, basically. They're not overly embellished or anything. And then eventually there's a point in that where the worlds spill over at kind of an important point in the story. And then from that point on, it's kind of like everything is crazy. So that was interesting, like in terms of how it was structured. In the original,
definitely.
In the original short story, it was like I just would do I would skip a line. So I would like write the diner scene, and then I would skip a line, and then it would be the hallucination scenes, and then I'd skip a line, and then be back to the diner. And I pretty much stuck to that. And what was interesting about that project is that when you're adapting like prose into comic book form, you're like, I mean, you're again cutting it all up. You're like taking so much out of it that you had originally wrote into, because you need the pictures to do most of the heavy lifting in terms of the story, and B, you just don't have the room. Like you just don't. There's an economy of space, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
You just don't have a lot of room on the page for a lot of words.
And that's sometimes the fun thing about comics too, is creativity through constriction.
Yeah, which is the only way I'm able to write. Really, I have to. I need that constriction. I need to be able to break it down and say, hey, we have to get from point A to point B in 20-something page, 24 pages or 28 pages.
Right.
And I have to have these plot points taken care of before I move on. So it's like problem solving, you know? And then
sometimes it paradoxically gives you more freedom to have that constriction.
Yeah, that's exactly correct. That's totally my view of it.
Yeah, I've been teasing my audience for a while now, a fictional podcast that I'm writing. I'm in the middle of writing 2 of them.
Oh, cool.
And the one that I've definitely been teasing my audience about has been a show called Man Seeking Dragon, which is a podcast built around the title. Because when we were trying to come up with the title for this show, Nerdynomicon, one of the names that was pitched was Man Seeking Dragon, which I absolutely fell in love with. I'm like, it's not right for this, but I love that title. So I sat down, I'm like, what would fit with that? And I haven't given too much information on this show, but that info is coming because we're almost completely cast now. And I think it's going to be something really fun, really exciting, really funny, something that people are really going to enjoy.
It is a strong title, that's for sure.
Oh, God, I love it. I can't even take credit for it. I didn't come up with that. Brooke, one of the hosts on the show that does the Fomotional Rants, actually came up with it. She's just sitting there. She looks at me, Man Seeking Dragon. I'm like, yes. Not for this, but yes. I don't know what it means, but I want to go there.
It's great when you get a title that just like everything kind of falls into place for it. I hear a lot from like other writers that they have a hard time titling things. Mm-hmm. I have no problem titling things.
I generally speaking have a horrible time. I still have a horror show, which is 2 episodes away from being complete, and then we're going to start production on that as well. I still don't have a fucking title for it.
Yeah.
So even in the scripts, when I have narrators saying certain things, I have blanks where the title goes because I still don't have a title yet. And the 2 that I liked are already taken.
Dope. Yeah, that's the thing to be concerned about too. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. But it's like talking about titling my stuff, you know. Mm-hmm. I mean, Man in the Diner is pretty obvious. I mean, it's about a man in the diner. It's not terribly difficult. Insurance is part of the joke. That's arguably our first joke, is that there's a comic book called Insurance.
Right.
You know, people are, and it totally works this way. People see it and they're like, that can't really be called Insurance. You know, and then they look at me, they give me this weird look, and they expect me to like jump into it. And like, sometimes I do. Sometimes I make them ask like what this is about. You know, I just gotta play it by ear.
Right.
But it's designed to be sort of an intriguing kind of thing to come up with it. And there's a bunch of other titles that I could potentially talk about, but those are all things that are unproduced, so I'm not going to get into it yet.
Well, let's finally jump into the next one that is being produced.
Yes.
And the title of that one is Polybius Dreams?
Polybius Dreams, yes. There's some confusion as to where it's said Polybius or Polybius, but I don't think it matters. So
that was why I kind of ended it with the question mark. I'm like, Did I say this right?
Right, yeah. No, it's Polybius Dreams. And if you don't know the story of Polybius, it's an internet urban legend. It's arguably the first creepypasta, which I thought was very interesting.
Ooh.
That talks about this arcade game that started appearing during the early days of the arcade in the early 80s. it started appearing in Portland. And it's interesting that it would start appearing in Portland because that actually was a test market for video games back in the day. It's nestled right between Nintendo and Atari on the West Coast. So
all I really know about Portland generally comes from Portlandia.
Portlandia,
no idea about real. That, man. Well, only young people go to retire.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's super true. If they can afford the outrageous rents. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. Anyway, this game started showing up, and it was like unmarked. It was called Polybius, and people started getting really into it, like way too into it. Like they were playing it and they were becoming obsessed with it. But the game itself was buggy, so it would like just shut down like in the middle of somebody playing it, and then the next guy playing it would be like, "Hey, it's my turn," and then they'd get into fights. And all the while, like people were coming into the arcades and like collecting unknown information from it, like collecting data from it. You know, the mythical Men in Black were showing up and servicing the game. And then people started complaining about headaches. Some people had seizures. And then some people started saying that they were having night terrors. Like people who were playing the game were like having night terrors and consequently insomnia. So these are the things that were plaguing people that were doing it. And then eventually a rash of suicides occurred.
Oh, shit.
And then the game disappeared forever, never to be seen again. And like right now, it's sort of like a cryptid. Like it's not all that different from like Bigfoot or like a chupacabra, is that people want to know, is it out there? There's certainly some truth to it.
Right.
But it's hard to separate what the legend is from what actually happened. There's at least one guy out there, without getting too much in the urban legends, there's at least one programmer out there that says he was a programmer on it. But I just thought, I heard that story and it freaked me the fuck out. Like when I heard, this is a sweary podcast, right? We can swear.
Oh, dear God. Fuck shit down.
Fuck yeah, okay.
I think I've already said fuck at least 2 times.
Yeah, I think you probably did. Anyway. It seemed like a really great story. I was...
Absolutely. Dude.
I was
you telling me that right now? I feel like Nick Silver, and I want to investigate Tanis.
Oh, it's so creepy. Yeah.
Oh my God, man! I really have I'm fighting every instinct right now to jump online and start researching it, and like fly to Portland and just go like in back alleys, being like, "Yo, you heard of Polybius?"
Yo, you can find. Yeah, you can actually find some really interesting stuff online. I've probably watched a lot of it, to tell you the truth, and.
Yeah, thanks, Ben. I didn't need to sleep tonight.
Yeah, it's creepy stuff, but yeah, it creeped me out when I heard of it.
Right.
And at the time I was in school and I was studying media, and we were talking a lot about like the perceived threat to media. Like every time some new technology comes along, there's always a backlash against it. Like probably when you and I were growing up, it was like video games because Mortal Kombat and Doom and
they were huge.
Yeah,
and oddly enough, Linkin Park,
like the band?
Yeah.
Really?
Band. Oh, God, yeah. Oh, there was huge backlash against that.
Really? I don't know. I think I missed that. I think it was probably a little bit past my time. But like now it's like Snapchat. You know, it's like the kids the young kids nowadays are all like on their smartphones or whatever, and we're still kind of having that same debate and event. There's going to be another violent video game where people are going to be talking about it again. Like even with the new Mortal Kombat, it just happened. Like not too long ago, like that keeps coming around, like in our culture. It's pretty much been part of gaming since it started.
Right. Exactly.
So I decided that like this would be a really cool place to start. Like the story of Polybius would be an interesting place to start to sort of explore that relationship that society has with video gaming in sort of a primordial way, like going back to the arcade culture and what that community was like and what the backlash against arcades were. And in many ways, Polybius Dreams is sort of like about the death of arcade culture because it occurs at a time when it's still where it's established and it's established enough that there's a backlash against it.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also an excuse to tell like a character-driven story. Like I knew I wasn't just going to rehash the story of Polybius. Everybody knows it, you know. Well, not everybody, but a lot of people know the story. They don't need to come to my comic in order to just have it retold to them.
Right.
So I'm making it really very much about the characters. It follows basically 3 boys that are freshmen in their high school. Their one place of refuge is the arcade, like in their small town. They're friends with the arcade owners who are, you know, in their early 20s. brother and sister who like run the place, and everything is good until this game shows up, and then it basically kind of starts unfolding many of the same ways as the urban legend does. But as this is going on, we learn more about who they are, and where once like things in the town, like everything in the town starts to become like upended, and chaos ensues. Kids are dying. The one guy's mom is crusading against games in general and trying to drag him to church and like bugging the police, and it's just everything kind of goes crazy. But the story is what happens to the characters, like as a result of that.
And I absolutely love character-driven stories. I mean, I already referenced The Walking Dead. That book is nothing if not character-driven.
Yeah.
The zombies essentially become scenery. They become props to tell the story.
Right.
Oh, man, this sounds excellent.
Yeah. I knew I had something really cool on my hands when I started, like, sort of hashing out the details. And what really kind of brought it all together was when I sort of discovered how we were going to visually represent the hold that the game has on these kids, because otherwise without that visual element, I could easily just write it as a prose story. But the way that we're showing like how it's affecting their consciousness having played the game makes horror out of the drama. Because it's unknown, B, it's surreal. There's a Lovecraftian element to it. Basically, what happens is that they start having dreams. It's called Polybius Dreams.
So you got to have a dream.
So they have dreams. Yeah, they start having dreams that's transporting them to this like forest of the dead, and basically what's happening in there is they're being reprogrammed, but it's brought about in a subtle way, like so subtle that the artist didn't even really understand some of the symbolism that I was working with, and it was like, why does this happen?
No,
I'm like,
shit.
oh, it's because of this and this and this, and so I'm like, oh, it's interesting. So that's once we kind of came across that of using this force of the dead motif to show their descent into madness, then it all kind of clicked, There's layers of symbolism in it. Like it takes place in a town named Autumn Hill in autumn, and it deals with the transition between life and death, which is what occurs from autumn until winter.
Mm.
And at the start of the story, it's like a bright, nice, sunny autumn, lots of autumn colors and all that stuff. And then it literally, during the denouement of the story, there's a snowstorm descending on the town. So that's part of it as well. That sets like the whole mood through the whole thing, and like the arc of the characters as it pertains to to the events and all that.
God damn, dude.
Yeah, a lot of thought went into this.
Oh my god! All right, I've got a question, then I've got a little rant that I wanted to go on. First off, are any of the issues done for this yet? Like me being a member of the online press, do I have the ability to get early access to read this like now? Like, can I come over and read like the first 3 issues, or are you guys still in production of this?
I'll let you read the script for pretty much the whole thing if you want.
Oh.
We have the pages aren't colored, but we've got I think 25 out of 32 pages done.
Oh my god! So you guys are going full born into this already?
Yeah,
because you guys have a Kickstarter up for this too, which we're going to talk about here in just a minute.
Yeah. Yes. We've been working on it for. Keith has been on the project since this past summer. Okay. He's the illustrator, Keith Gratcho, professional illustrator, first fully professional that I've ever worked with, and it's been a really cool experience. I knew that there's a quality to his characterizations that I knew would be perfect for this story. First of all, he can do realism very well, and most of the story is realism until we kind of like what we did in Man in the Diner, where it's like it's real until something happens.
Until it ain't.
Until it ain't, yeah, and then it's just off the wall like crazy. So, but you have to establish that real first, and he's been very good at that. Like,
of course,
we're establishing that, and then we're going to fuck it all up. And but like I knew he would be good because like his expressions and looking at like just the panels that we have, like there's not a single panel wasted in terms of describing who these characters are. Like I give him pages and I get them back, And I see the posture that he's putting in there and how that describes who they are and the look on their face and where they're looking. And it's just been so visually rich, like working with them.
Oh my God, that sounds great. To our audience, those who may not know his work, because you said that he's a professional as far as artist and everything like that, where could they find some of his work so that they can kind of get an idea as to what his style is?
Yeah, kgracho.com. It's
kgracho.com.
kgrachow.com. You can find his stuff there. He's got like a series of children's books. He's worked on a couple of other independent comic books. And he's been an art educator for some time.
Excellent. Yeah, there's some art that's up right now as far as your Kickstarter and everything as well, and it looks excellent.
I can't believe how good it looks. Like it's astounding to me.
I've been kind of following this along here a little bit too, because you and I are also friends on Facebook. So every once in a while I get really bored and I just kind of drop in on friends and I just kind of, stalk their profiles a little bit. And I've been waiting and looking for the indication with Insurance Issue 5 coming out, because I really wanted to have you on at that point, and I wanted to reach out to Zach as well, and I guess I fucking missed it. And then I started to see Polybius Dreams, and I'm like, okay, all right, I like your style, I like what you're doing, and I started to read about arcade games, and it reminded me of this book that I checked out about a year ago called Survivor's Club. And I was really excited about the premise of it. A girl possessed by a doll, a guy that was like attacked by a ghost and everything. All of these kids back in the 80s and whatever happened to them, and they come together as like this almost like supernatural crime fighting force. And there was a video games thrown in there somehow as well. And it was really not good. Mm. And then I start to read a little bit about
like you're not good, like it was bad, like it was badly written, like that thing, or it was or it was menacing. Like,
no, it was poorly written. Okay. As terrible as I feel saying that, because I really try to stay positive on the show.
Yeah.
I mean, just some things are not good. When I talk about things on the show, I like to talk about things that I can get excited about, and that's why most of the stuff on the show, I'm like, I recommend this. You need to read this. You need to watch this, because there's way too much negativity on the internet.
I totally agree, and I try to do the same thing as well. Like,
right. Instead of cursing the darkness, I want to light a candle. You know?
And I don't want to the other thing is as a writer, I have very huge misgivings about ever saying anybody's writing is bad. But you're right. Sometimes.
So the problems that I was having with it is there's sometimes I'm reading a book, and you'd go to turn the page and something completely off the wall is happening in the very first panel, and I'm like, wait, did the pages stick together? And I find myself almost ruining the integrity of my comic, double checking to make sure nothing's stuck together. I'm like, I feel like I'm missing a little bit of something. I never had this problem with Survivor's Club because it would do that mid-page. Mm-hmm. I think you guys forgot to turn in 5 pages here because nothing about this makes sense. But my point is, it had an arcade game thrown in there somehow as well. It had nothing to do with Polybius. So it just harkened back to that. And as I read more about the premise that you had on your Kickstarter, I started to just kind of go misty-eyed on it. I'm like, oh my God, this sounds so cool. And I already know your writing style. So I know that you sit down, you're going to fucking crush this.
Yeah,
so
thanks.
You got me
so
excited about this.
Good. I'm hoping other people are excited about it too. And the thing is that I do kind of, I'm always kind of walking this line between comedy and horror. And even a lot of the horror that I write, I look at as comedy. To me, Man in the Diner is hilarious. That story about the space people coming to Earth is so funny to me. That story I used to tell people, excuse me, I used to tell people that story, kind of leading them to think it was a joke. And then I would get to the end of it and I'd be smiling at them, but they'd look at me what the fuck is wrong with you? I love that reaction. I go for that reaction. As a writer, I want that to happen. Whereas
you just want everybody to think that you're legitimately talking about our reptilian overlords that are coming here to overthrow us.
Yeah. Well, Man in the Diner for sure. Yeah,
exactly.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
So I definitely see where you're coming from with the humor there. I read that book probably 3 times, and yeah, the humor is definitely there when you read it with that lens, for sure.
If you think about it for a second, it's so absurd.
Right. I was caught so blindsided because the tone was so different from Insurance. I came into it expecting a certain thing, and I got something completely different, so I'm like, oh, well, maybe I really need to dive into this a little bit. Maybe I really need to pay attention and go introspective here. and it works.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, the humor is definitely there. I think it's all in how you read it. But regardless, it's a fantastic book.
Yeah,
and again, I'm not giving compliments because you're on my show. I've told people flat out on other shows and everything. One time when I was on their show, yeah, that was a piece of ass. And again, I try to stay so positive, but I'm never going to lie. I'm not going to say something's good if it's not. No, it was very good. That's why I trust you with a story and a concept about an arcade game, about this creepypasta and everything. This sounds fantastic.
Yeah.
This sounds so much fun.
And about it sort of being based on an urban legend, like I didn't want to go into it and assume ownership of that urban legend. You know, like I didn't want to. I knew it would be inappropriate for me to like present the definitive story about the game Polybius. Instead, I went through a route so that it's open to interpretation. If other people want to play around with these elements, there's nothing about my story that's going to essentially step on their toes. It's almost a MacGuffin. Like, it's almost misdirection. It's the game itself is there as sort of it's a monster for sure, but it's an inciting incident to tell this character story, you know?
Which makes perfect sense. And also, you're in good company on the show as far as creepypasta go, man. We've had creepypasta writers on the show with Christopher Bloodworth and MJ Orrs. We've had narrators with Mr. Creepypasta and Andrew over at Irrational Fears. You're in good company here, my friend.
Good, yeah.
You're in good company.
I've just been starting to listen to those. I used to read them, and now I'm listening to. And now I just kind of like in the last few months started getting into podcasts and listening to creepypastas narrated, and it's just so much more effective when you have somebody telling. Yeah, it is. Because the part of the idea of creepypasta is like this could happen. Like
exactly.
This is so like, you know, you don't want to get too supernatural with your creepypastas, although some of them do. But
some of them do.
Yeah.
Some of them toe that line. In my opinion, the best ones are when they toe that line just with that perfect sense, like for instance, Smile Dog. Mm-hmm. You know, or no,
I don't know that one.
Oh, I
don't know a lot of them. I just like.
Oh, that one's an OG creepypasta. That one's over there with like Jeff the Killer and stuff. You know,
Jeff the Killer. I know.
Yeah, that one's an OG pasta. Apparently on the same level as Polybius Dreams, even though that one I didn't know. I guess it was that OG. I didn't know it, and also the way you told that urban legend got under my skin too. So,
well, that's the interesting thing is that's the pitch for my book, but it's weirdly that doesn't tell you anything about my book. Like that's just the background, you know. That's just the background of like where like the story came from. I was walking around Toronto Comic Con this past weekend, last weekend, and I was flyering. I had flyers for Polybius Dreams, and I was talking to people about it. Some people knew it immediately and were like, oh, yeah, I kind of know this. And they would tell me, like, their version of it. Because, you know, it's an urban legend. It gets filtered through everybody.
Yeah,
like a conspiracy theory. It gets filtered through everybody that has heard it and is now retelling it. So it was pretty cool for me. It was like a weird social experiment where I got to hear everybody's different version of the story as I was. And then it would either be like, well, I'm doing a thing with it, and it's about these characters, and it takes place in an arcade in a small town, or it was like me telling them like the urban legend. But at that point, like when you pitch somebody, especially when you're pitching them face to face, like you don't have a lot of time, you know, and so by the time
get it done, get out.
Yeah, exactly. And by the time I'd be done, like explaining the urban legend that goes around it, and that's pretty much my whole pitch. Like they're basically on board, like at that point, or they're just like politely being like, "Oh, it's maybe not my thing." But I mean, that ends up being the whole pitch, and we've certainly done really well amongst people that know the story already. Sure.
Well, I was on board before we sat down for this show. You fucking better believe I'm on board right now.
Good.
So let's talk a little bit about the Kickstarter for everybody out there that's on board as well. You've got a Kickstarter going for this.
That's right. Yeah, we're set up. You can find it by going to www.polybiusdreams. That's POLYBIUSDREAMS.com.
You can also find it in the show notes if you guys just want to click on it. If you're feeling lazy and squirrely, you just want to click, it'll be in the show notes for you.
And that'll take you right to our Kickstarter campaign that we're running, which has a cinematic trailer. It's got all our pinups that we did for it. You can see the cover art. that we've got. And again, I can't, like, I've never been part of something that looked this good. I've always had a lot of faith in my writing. Like, I don't get to the point where I'm putting something out there that, you know, hasn't been workshopped already. Right. Like, usually I told my stories to a bunch of people. Like, in the case of the Plenty of Time story with the astronauts, I was just telling that to people just as a lark, you know, just because I thought it was like a funny idea.
Right.
And I would just, you know, just tell people, like, in person. And then Man in the Diner I'd already written as a story. I'd already gotten feedback on that, and I was just adapting it. And Insurance was just like, everyone I would tell that premise to was just like, you gotta do it. You gotta do that comic, man. He's so good. You gotta do it. So we did. So.
Oh, dude, not only did you have to do it, you gotta do more of it.
Yeah.
Okay?
You
gotta do more of it.
We'll see. I have some ideas for where it's going to go, but Mike's got other projects and a crazy busy work schedule, and I got to get Polybius Dreams going.
Oh, come on, Mike. You can sleep when you're dead.
Yeah,
Mike, I'm going to have you on the show, and I'm going to chastise you. Right sleep when you're dead.
We should get him on.
Surge and no-dose. Come on, man.
Yeah. Dude, he, like, works nights. He is always tired. He's got, like, a family. He's got a job that is way too demanding. And, like, man, he does these comics. It's like, I almost feel bad. Like, I feel like it's almost sadistic when I'm asking pages for him. But he's really come to bat, you know. It just takes a really long time to get it out. Like, Insurance was 151 pages total, and it took us 3 years.
Oh, my God. Really?
Yeah. It was 3 years. And there was a lot of heat in that time. We had to learn how to tell a story well together. I had to learn how to letter comic books. I lettered the first issue of Insurance, I think, 4 times before it stuck, before I was happy with it.
Wow.
And I lettered issues 2 and 3 at least twice.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. And then by the time I was doing 4, now I know what I'm doing. So my lettering looks good now. My lettering is, like, really looking nice right now. If you look at the stuff,
is why people pay for people to letter their books.
Yeah, but if you can't afford it, you got to do it yourself. And I would, like, you know, it's not so bad when you're a writer and you letter your own books. Then you have just that much more control over the words on the page.
Yeah, I wasn't criticizing. I was saying that as an aha moment because for everybody out there that's looking at the credits in the comics, why is somebody else lettering them? That's why.
Because it's hard. And
that's why.
Once you've done it a couple times yourself, you really start to notice the lettering. Like, it's one of the things I look at right now in every comic that I read. I look at it and I find myself, like, critiquing the lettering, and I always got to ask myself, can I do that? Can I make that shape? Can I make it look like that?
Right.
You know, can I get it to connect the way that it connects, and can I get it to flow across the page? So I'm so cognizant now, way more than I've ever been. Absolutely.
Oh, man. But going back to the Kickstarter, how long is this going for? What kind of a time frame do our listeners have to jump into this? Be like, Polybius Dreams, yes. # Polybius Dreams, yes.
It's going for quite a while. We're going to be going. We're running like a 60-day campaign, and we started on March 14th. So we're going to be going to like mid-May.
So you definitely got time to jump in on this.
You got time to jump in, but there are special rewards if you back early. Like if you're able to back before April 1st. Like, I don't know when this is going, but we have a special print available for people that back before April 1st by Drew Moss, who is another like professional in the field. He's doing covers right now for IDW's ROM series. And
that's a good book.
Yeah, and he's absolutely just an amazing artist. So we've got a special print from him if you're able to back early. But part of the reason we're running it for so long is that it's hard to get the money together. Not a lot of people know me, so when you're an established comic book creator and you throw something up on Kickstarter, you can pretty much count on it getting funded pretty quickly. So I don't really have that, so I have to do a lot of like winning people over, trying to get them to like introduce my stuff to them. Right. And we're only going to get to funding the first issue. I would hope that we could try to fund 2 issues during this, but we're going to be back up on Kickstarter, I'm sure, in a couple months trying to fund the rest of the series. And it's kind of a bummer because like I wish we would be able to find a publisher, but even like most of the publishers right now don't pay for like art. As weird as it sounds, like any publisher that we would be able to do this with like isn't going to pay for the production. They would only like cut a deal with you for distribution, and that's just the way the industry works right now. So we have to go to Kickstarter. I'm learning even more now.
So that's why Afterlife with Archie is so fucking inconsistent.
Yeah, well, Archie does pay their creators. I don't know how well they pay their creators.
Oh, well, fair enough.
Yeah. I know, like...
All right, so I gave him an excuse, and excuse is now taken away. God damn it.
No, well, they own all those characters, so... Like, if it's, like, a company like Image, all the creators own all that stuff.
True.
It's all creator-owned.
Yeah, that's the whole basis behind Image Comics is creator-owned comics.
Creator-owned comics, and they're doing a great job at it. But really, all Image does is branding and distribution. You get that eye, that really slick-looking Image eye on your book, and they get you in stores, and then they cut the profits up with you, and you get some of it back. But it's just distribution. They don't pay for any of the art. They don't pay for any of the series. So, yeah.
I did not know that.
It's weird. Like, it's just the way the industry works right now.
And this is a hugely edifying episode of Nerdy Nominated. Fuck, dude. Usually I'm the one all preachy and shit like that. This time I am learning so much about the inner workings of the comic book world.
You know, there's a lot to learn. And sadly, there's a lot to kind of be bitter about as, like, a young writer because... You know, I prefer not to have to finance this on myself, but then at the same time, I have total creative control. It's not like I have an editor.
This is true.
You know? I mean, it's not like having an editor would be a bad thing. It would probably improve the book, but I can't afford a freelance editor. So I just, you know, between Keith and I, we're telling a pretty good story here. Like,
and that at the end of the day, that's what matters, though.
Yeah, that's absolutely what matters. I mean, some books don't have editors. Not all books do. A lot of Image books don't. There was a debate not too long ago about whether, you know, we really even need editors in comics. I think we do, but it depends on the type of situation that you've got. For like a creator-owned book, you might not need an editor. And I don't think we need one. I think we're telling a really good story. I think I'm discerning enough, and Keith isn't going to do anything that's stupid. Like when I bring the story stuff to Keith, he's very quick about letting me know what works, what doesn't work, what he wants to change, if something would work better a particular way. And so far, it's really made our book better. Like, just in general, it's been, you know, you can, and that's kind of another lesson about making comic books is that it's collaborative. Mm-hmm. So use that collaborative space, you know, between you and other people. Don't, as a writer, don't let your ego get in the way.
Don't be a megalomaniac.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't enigma all over the place, man.
Sure. So...
All right. So Kickstarter is going to be going on for quite some time.
Yeah.
What kind of rewards do we got?
Oh, what kind of rewards do we got? Well, we've got the comic. We've got 2 covers. We've got the main cover by Keith, and we've got a special variant cover by amazing artist Kelly Williams, who's kind of up and coming in horror comics. Like, a lot of people in comics know who he is. He's gaining a lot more notoriety. He's done some covers for the Puppet Master books.
Okay.
He's done work for Eerie and Creepy over at Dark Horse.
Okay.
So when I came across the image that I had him draw, it was a very important image. I knew I had to get him for it. Like, he's the perfect artist to do this thing. So when you guys see it, it's like he was totally the first choice for that, and I'm really glad we were able to get him.
God, kismet when things come together like that.
Yeah, it's fantastic. And so we've got a lot of different prints. We're offering the original art for a lot of them as well for higher level pledges. We have a T-shirt with a pretty sick design on it.
There it is. There it is. I want my hands on that fucking T-shirt right there.
Yeah, like, it's a good design.
The weirdest shit, man. I collect comics, I collect magic cards, and oddly enough, I collect T-shirts. To me, it's like wearable art, you know?
Yeah, it's totally... I mean, yeah, absolutely. And it's designed... Like, I wanted a lot of the merch, like, particularly the pinups and the T-shirt, to sort of work on its own for the urban legend and not necessarily be tied to, too stringently to my particular story. So it's a Polybius T-shirt. It's offered through the Polybius Dreams Kickstarter, but it works on its own. Like, anybody who knows the legend, would see something in this. It's not limited just to my story. Because, like I said, I don't want to grab it all up so nobody else can use the Polybius stuff for whatever they're doing.
Right.
So you can get all of insurance. You can get Plenty of Time and Man in the Diner. We have a reward tier for that. If at some of the higher pledge levels, you can get drawn into the comic. Keith's offering art lessons. I'm offering to letter comics, and I have a writing workshop that somebody is actually a local guy has already taken me up on, which is humbling. And I never would have done a writing workshop if it weren't for Keith's improvement. He was like, "No, you're a good writer. You should talk to people about it. You need to hop in this." I'm like, dude, making me feel good. But yeah, I'm going to go ahead and do it. So,
fucking A, man.
It's basically everything we're offering so far. So
that's absolutely great. You guys need to go out, take a look at this Kickstarter, find a tier, throw some money their way, man. Fund this book, fund Polybius, have the dreams about Polybius. That's what you got to do.
Even if you guys just pledge, even if you pledge at like a $5 level, you'll get the digital reward, and we're going to have some other digital rewards coming out there, because sometimes with Kickstarters, you pledge the digital and then you're kind of locked out of like the stretch rewards. I'm going to try to have some more comics coming at you at the digital level, so you could potentially get a lot of stuff. And if we do manage to fund the whole thing, which is a long shot, but if we do manage to fund the whole thing with this campaign, you'll get the whole book for $5 digitally.
The whole damn book for $5.
Digitally, yeah. I can't print the whole thing up, you know?
Naturally.
But yeah, that'd be great if we hit that. But I mean, that's a long ways away. We might be able to do it if enough people help us out.
Well, tell you what, you've got me fucking excited about this book, man. I'm going to be your town crier on the internet. I'm going to be repping this book on Nerdynomicon. So look forward to hearing more about Polybius Dreams. I'm going to keep an eye on this Kickstarter, and I'm going to keep our audience posted. Don't wait until May. Kickstarters have a tendency to start out strong, get kind of stagnant in the middle, and then end really strong. Don't do that. Do not wait. This episode, by the time this drops, because we're looking for a Tuesday release on this, you guys have less than a week to get on there, get on Kickstarter, and sign up for the reward tiers to get that before April art, man. Get that before April print.
The Drew Moss piece. When you see it,
you got time. You got time. Make sure you do it, because God knows I'm going to. I'm going to make sure I get that art. Are you kidding me? So, make sure you do that. Before we wrap up, I also just want to make sure you guys, if you like what you're hearing, if you like my chattering voice, which I've been pretty silent on this episode, a lot quieter than I usually am, frankly. But if you like the sound of my sweet pipes, you think that we're worth supporting a little bit, patreon.com/artfulgremlins. Throw us $1, throw us $2. $1 a month, you get early access to everything that we do at Nerdynomicon, everything we do at Couldn't Be Models. You guys get updates on the fictional shows. There's so much going on over there. Awesome rewards for you guys. And if you don't think that we're worth it or you don't have it right now, that's totally cool. Just be sure to log on to iTunes, get onto your account, rate and review us. Those help out more than you can even imagine. I know you guys hear this on every podcast you listen to, but they say it because it's true. Rates and reviews gets us in front of a bigger audience. More people can find us. I know you guys like to think that you're, the hipsters over there. Oh, I found Nerdynomicon before. It was awesome. Well, first off, thank you. Secondly, you can't really say that if more people don't listen to. So be the hipster, man, and rate us and review us. Get us in front of more people. Let their ears get affected the same way yours have. Ben, before we sign off, anything else that you want to say to the audience?
No, just thanks. I hope you guys, thanks very much, Robbie, for the plug. Hope you're able to check it out. Hope you're able to contribute if you can. Definitely keep tabs on us. And you can also find me at hypnoticdogcomics.com or on social media. I'm at Ben Grisanti, Grisanti. I'll follow back. You can find me on Facebook too, under my name. So,
your website there with Hypnotic Dog, that's where we can find insurance and Man in the Diner?
Yeah, but right now, right now I want all the money flowing through the Kickstarter. So okay. You can't actually buy it. You can't actually buy it through my website. If you want print copies, you can get it through the Kickstarter too. Yeah,
well, come on, people are going to be listening to this years after the Kickstarter is going on.
We're not going anywhere. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, so, that's true.
So people are going to be signing on. They're like, I wanted to be a part of the Kickstarter. Well,
no, go to hypnotic.com.
Don't worry about it. You can still find it on the website.
Yeah, absolutely, you can.
So awesome. So that's where you can get the other books that we've been talking about. And by the way, I've read those. Highly recommend them. Art's amazing. Story's hysterical. Man in the Diner captivated my brain. Captivated me, man. So check those out. Check out the website. Check out the Kickstarter. So many cool things. I'm looking at it right now while we're recording this, and I'm trying to decide on how much money I'm throwing at this, because I'm throwing money down. I got to get that t-shirt. So anyway, I've been spouting too much. Until later on this week with the second episode, I've been Robbie.
I've been Ben.
Let's close the book on this week.